the only way to get to a mountaintop is to go through the valley first. You got to go through a valley, and life is just a series of valleys and mountaintops, right? And if you stop short in whatever valley you're in, if you quit and you don't make it to that next mountaintop, you'll never know. That valley might have been your promised land. Over top of that next mountain, in that next valley, might be that one, that catalyst that opened the door for you. If you don't know, that's where the excitement is. That's where the adventure is figuring something out. And if you don't have that, if you never acquire that, I don't think anybody really enjoys that to start. But honestly, I think that almost gets comfortable. As soon as money becomes your deciding factor on what you do, your dream just died. I'm Billy with Modern Day Mountain Man, Trust the Guide, and this we're calling Blaze Your Trail. Basically, I'm trying to give what I hope is beneficial wisdom to anybody. Young men is kind of if I'm talking to one person, I would say it's like a teenage boy, a young man, middle-aged man. And this episode, I guess, is titled How to Become Anything. It started off as how to become a hunting guide, because that's what I do. That's the most common question I get outside of guys that want to go hunting in Alaska or someplace around the world. They ask me, hey, I would love to do what you do, but I don't know where to start. Well, I didn't either. And what I've realized is there's an old adage, how you do a thing is how you do everything. And I totally believe that to be true. And I think no matter what you're trying to achieve or any goals that you have or ideas of what you would like to do in life, I think these basic principles are going to serve you in that. As I started to do this, I made it specific to becoming a guide, but I realized the actual nuts and bolts of learning how to guide, that's the easy stuff. It's all the back work, I don't know if psychology is the right word, but just the basic principles of becoming are very basic, and so I wanted to share them. So my credentials, I was born and raised on a farm, wanted to go to Alaska, basically didn't know how to start, I just started and I just didn't quit. Been guiding hunters in Alaska for 25 years, making hunting films, documentaries for 17 years, been filming them for over 25 years, my hunting experiences, that is. Been an outdoor writer, I'm an author. I've got 28 full-length hunting films produced. I do public speaking all across the nation, a little bit international. And I dare say what gives me the most credibility is that I've spent 8 years of my life in a tent in the wilderness, and most of that time has been spent with others, namely my clients, who are typically men that are at least to some degree successful, for sure successful financially. And I believe that I've learned a thing or two from pretty much every single one of them, because I've spent every waking moment of a week to 2 weeks with these men, and the conversations that you have and the things that you talk about in those types of settings where you're with someone 24 hours a day, they get very personal, they get very open and honest, and I would be a fool to not have learned things from them. So much of what I'm going to share that I believe that I have to share comes from them, things that I've gleaned from them. So if you want to do something, achieve something, I would say the first question you have to ask yourself is, why do you want to do it? What's your purpose? What's your motivation? And some of positive responses to that question, I would say, are going to be, well, it's my dream, or I can't imagine not doing it, or maybe you even felt called to do it to where you have to do it. For me, that's what being in nature has been for me. It's just like there really is nothing else. It is my place to go. It's where everything makes sense. And I didn't care. It was never about making money. I wanted adventure. I wanted experience. I wanted to go to Alaska. There was nothing else for me. So it really, that having that desire, that made everything else easy. If you don't have that desire, that clear-cut focus, that one thing, that knowing that there's no doubt about it, come hell or high water, this is what I want to do, it's probably going to be an uphill battle for you. If you ask yourself, why do I want to do this? Some negatives would probably be to make money. If your goal is to make money, you could do that. But I don't personally believe you're ever going to be fulfilled. Whatever, if it's a dollar amount, when you get to that, you're going to be filled with emptiness. There's no fame, there's no money, no power. If it's for selfish, if the reasons are solely for you, if and when you attain that, it'll be worse than if you started, is my belief. Because if you're not giving life to other people, if you're not providing something for other people, there will be no real internal reward. There will be no personal fulfillment to be had. Admittedly, when I went to Alaska, I wanted to experience all the things that come with, hunting in the wilderness. I wanted to shoot a moose, a caribou, and all these things. And honestly, I've never shot a big game animal for myself in 25 years of guiding. What I realized when I got there, it was so much bigger than what I imagined. The wilderness adventure, the wilderness immersion, that's what I love. And by default, by becoming a hunting guide, because I wanted to hunt these animals, but I didn't figure I'd be able to afford to hunt them myself, I figured by becoming a guide, I'd get to hunt them by default and make a few bucks at it, hopefully make a living, was all I was really concerned of doing. But what I realized by default as being a guide, I was serving other people. I was serving my clients. I was making their dreams come true. If I were to go to Alaska today, I would much rather guide a person than a hunter than I would to hunt myself, because I get way more reward making another person's dream come true than I would shooting an animal myself. So a negative, I believe that you're in the wrong direction if you answer the question of why you want to do something is for the money, number one. If you're trying to prove something to others, if you're trying to best somebody, or, well, I'll show that person that told me I'd never amount to anything, if that's your reason for doing something, if that's your motivation, I mean, you're set up on a broken foundation right off the get-go. Because here's a guarantee, you are going to hit roadblocks along the way. You're going to have trials and tribulations, and if it's not something that you love and you're absolutely passionate about and you want to do, it will be hard to pursue, it'll be hard to strive through, and it'll be so much easier to quit. Another negative would be I'm expected to. For me, I grew up on a farm, and I felt not a real strong amount of pressure from my parents to farm, but it was there. And I question if, everybody else was going to college. You go to high school, everybody's, you got to go to college to get a good job. That never rang true for me. But that said, I actually did go to college. It was the worst 3 weeks of my life. But my best education, I think what I had, the greatest asset that I had was the fact that I didn't know anything about Alaska. It was all new to me, and that's what brought my films to life. So a lot of times in life, our disabilities or our hardships, our lack of favor, what's the word I'm looking for? Our shortfalls or our shortcomings become our strengths. Because when I got to Alaska, everything was new to me, and I pulled out that video camera, I was paying attention to all the details, all the subtle nuances that anybody who was familiar with would take it for granted. And that's been the secret sauce of my films, and I didn't even know it. My film started off as home video that I wanted to take home and show to my 90-year-old grandpa that hunted and trapped his whole life, that inspired me, gave me the idea, gave me the spark to go to Alaska, as I wanted to show him what it was really like. And then by default, I started to show others around the world what hunting in Alaska was really like. And so, kind of in a closing of this section as to find your motivation and what's your purpose behind it. If your purpose is to give to others, is to fulfill yourself, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But when you can combine it to giving to others and fulfilling a need, you almost can't go wrong. And again, do something that you love. There's an old adage, if you do something you love, you'll never work a day in your life. And I would say that's absolutely true. And that if you love it, no matter what, I always figured for me, like being an outfitter, like having a grand scale, hiring lots of guides, to me, that would just be a job. And if I was to me, it would have been like selling pantyhose. It would have been something that I wasn't passionate about, that I didn't enjoy. And if you don't love it, the obstacles are going to bog you down. And Romans 8:31 says, if God is for us, who can stand against us? If this is a dream and a passion that God has put inside you, you can't fail. The end destination probably won't look exactly the way you imagined, but this is one thing that I've found, is that if you get started and you know where you want to go and you work hard, people will open the doors for you. There will be people there to open doors for you that you can't open yourself. The greatest motivator is hunger. Necessity, the old adage, necessity breeds invention. I talk about brown bears a lot. This is no secret, but a brown bear, he'll grab a salmon at the peak of the salmon spawn and he'll pull it out of the river, get onto the bank, step on it, rip the skin off of it, eat the skin. He'll eat the eggs if it's a female, he'll bite into the skull, and he'll suck the brains out of the fish. He'll actually leave the flesh, the meat, laying there. Why does he do that? Because he knows that there's more fat, nutrients, and protein in those parts of the fish than in the rest of it, okay? And people always ask, well, how does he know that? Because that bear's been hungry. If you go hungry, and I've been hungry before in hunting, sheep hunting, where we're going up and down the mountains, you don't crave, when you get really hungry, you don't crave a cheeseburger or pizza or a Coke. You crave sugar or fat or salt. It gets down to an elemental level. So if you're hungry, your hunger for something is probably the best precursor or predictable factor as to what you're going to achieve, and maybe to the level that you will attain something. So hunger, desire, willingness, that trumps your abilities. And I've had this happen several times. This is no joke, where young kids, young men, high school, college age kids, their mother will call me and say, hey, Johnny I think this would be a great job for him. Would you have anything for him? There is no way in God's green earth that I'm going to want to bring a kid whose mommy called looking for a job for him to think that he's going to have the gall and the grit to go into the Alaskan wilderness for 3 or 4 months and survive on his own. Absolutely not. I would I'd throw that kid's name in the trash barrel right away. It's like your mom asking some girl out on a date for you. That's insane. So if you don't have enough grit to pick up the phone for yourself, and nobody who's nobody in a blue-collar industry is going to take you seriously, for sure. And I've found that this is an absolute truth. If you want an opportunity from someone, they are more interested in what you're willing to do than what they are what you know. They're not going to care what you know, but if you tell them, I'll do anything, you don't have to pay me, that's how I got a job. That, for my first job in Alaska, that's what I told them. I said, I don't know anything, but I'm willing to work hard. I'm a farm kid. You don't even have to pay me. I'll do whatever it takes. I want to become a hunting guide. If you're willing to give me an opportunity, that's all I'm asking for. And I got a lot of job offers because I was humble. And once I got that opportunity, I was a packer, basically a human mule for a couple of years. And you got to start from the ground up. And don't look at that as, I think a lot of times people, they'll come in and they'll think that they're maybe above that, or they want to get out of that facet as fast as they can, which we all kind of do. But my advice is, when you start somewhere, do everything you possibly can. If this is an industry or a job or whatever it is, if you're really passionate about it, you're going to want to learn everything you can about it, because that's going to serve you. That's going to be the foundation for the rest of your life, for the rest of your career. Learn how to dig an outhouse hole. That's where I started out. Learn how to cut meat. Learn how to cape animals. Learn how to run a boat. Learn how to fix things. Learn how to set up a tent, cut wood. Take advantage and do everything you can. Volunteer for everything that you can. Work hard, ask as few questions as possible, offer your opinions never. And Scripture says that the proud will be humbled and the humble will be exalted. And my parents taught me enough about hard work, I guess, that it definitely served me in the wilderness of Alaska, that when I was a packer, that was easy work for me as a farm kid. And so they gave me opportunity because I didn't mind working hard. I was used to that. I wanted to do everything. I enjoyed it. It was all very, very easy for me. I heard a quote from Yvon Chouinard. I don't know if I'm pronouncing this right. The guy who started Patagonia, founded Patagonia. And he said something to the effect of, you want your business to grow commensurate the amount of time you want it to last. You know, if a business explodes and just takes off, and the next thing you know, all you're trying to do is fulfill demand of your product or your service, you're going to have to make a lot of shortcuts to keep up with that demand, and eventually it will collapse. And that definitely served me well, is that I started off slow, and I learned slow. I had lots of time. I didn't have any other commitments in life that I could go work for an outfitter. I could show up whenever he wanted me to. I could be there early and help with camp setups, and I could stay late to tear things down. That helped me immensely. And the other thought is just serve others. And if you serve others, Zig Ziglar said something to the effect of, the surest way to make your dreams come true is to make enough other people's dreams come true. That's absolutely happened with me in my guiding. I had a gentleman from Pennsylvania, 60 years old, 2 artificial knees, lifelong dream of hunting Dall sheep. Long story short, guided him. Barry Barton's his name. If you've seen any of my videos, you've seen videos of Barry. Got a nice Dall sheep. Years later, he retired from his job, and he said, hey, you made my dream come true. Now I want to make your dream come true. He knew my dream hunt was to go Cape buffalo hunting in Africa. Paid for the whole thing, lock, stock, and barrel. He just felt like he just wanted to reciprocate. That's all it was. You reap what you sow. And Matthew 23:11 says this, the greatest among you shall be the servant of all. If you want to be a leader in anything, you will have to humble yourself to the lowest common denominator. If you really want your people to respect and follow you, and I'm not saying that from a guy that's got it all figured out that I've done it, but I've been around enough good leaders that is absolutely what they will do. Is they're willing to do anything, and they probably have done it all. And to go back to what I said earlier was that if you know every facet of your industry, your business, whatever it is, if you know it from the ground up, that is a rare find, and that is the surest way, that is the most solid foundation for you to elevate and grow in your business, in your industry. And so in the hunting realm is, if you talk to someone, I have 25 years experience in the guiding hunting world. If I talk to someone with 5 years experience, I can tell within minutes of the conversation. Just like if I talk to an electrician, a journeyman electrician, he is going to figure out in probably 30 seconds that I don't know anything about wiring a house. Maybe I'll last 2 minutes because I know quite a bit about building, but electrical I don't. He's going to figure that out because I'm not going to speak that language. When you have dotted every I, you've crossed every T, you've done every task in the systematic building of your job, your career, your industry, people will take note of that immediately, and they will immediately give you respect, and they will immediately have confidence in you. So my start in the guiding industry, I went to a guide school in Montana, 19 years old, and this is going to lead me into my third point that I'm going to make, is that in order for you to do something new, something old has to die. So if you want new life, something old has to die. 19 years old, never been more than 300 miles from my house, never been on an airplane. I had to drive to Montana to this guide school. I worked 10 months at a creamery right out of high school so I could save money to buy a truck. Worked 80 hours a week, 7 days a week so I could get double time on my 7th day, and paid for that truck in like 6 months, and I was petrified. My mom said, I questioned whether I should go. Should I stay and farm? Because I was making $13 an hour. I thought I had life all figured out. And I was like, man, should I go to college? Should I stay at the farm? Should I stay at this job? And my mom said, Billy, this is your dream, and if you don't go now, you never will. Turtle Lake, Wisconsin, where I'm from. The next town is Clayton, Wisconsin. They're 4 miles apart. I cried before I made it to Clayton because I was scared. What had to die? My fear of failure, fear of leaving the life that I knew behind. Honestly, I wasn't even entirely confident that I could find Montana. I didn't know. That might even been the first time I drove in a city. I don't know. But when I look back at it, I've had to do that hundreds of times in life, and we all have to do. If you want something that is unfamiliar, you've got to shed something that is familiar. It's automatic. There is just no easy way. There's just, nobody does anything noteworthy or unique without struggle, without hardship. And they just don't focus on that. They just keep going. So some examples of what may need to die for you to accomplish whatever it is you're doing. Fear, like what I had. Peer pressure. You might have to leave your fears or your peers. There's nothing more, I shouldn't say there's nothing more toxic, but that is toxic if you have a group of people and they'll tell you that they love you. But if you go and do something with your life out of the norm, oftentimes human nature, selfish nature, we will try to ridicule or persecute somebody to make them feel bad or make them feel like they can't, because if somebody else goes and does something with their life, selfishly, oftentimes we will feel that reflects poorly on ourselves. So oftentimes the people that your friends will tease you. I got that a fair bit. People like, oh, so you're going to go be some big guide, huh? I mean, it was just, you could hear it in their tone that they wanted me to fail. There was a couple of people, honestly, I would say for every negative connotation, every 5 negative connotations that I got, or I could feel the disdain in their tone, I would get 1 positive, maybe even 10 to 1, 10 negative to 1. I started a television show. That's where I came up with the title Modern Day Mountain Man. Same thing, when I started a television show, I got a lot of backlash and negativity from people, particularly in the guiding community. I've been called the term Hollywood quite a bit, and I've kind of gotten over it, but it hurt. I didn't like it. I felt the it made me feel insecure. It made me feel like, yeah, who am I to be putting a TV show like this? But there was a few people that encouraged me when I went to write a book. I was like, man, who am I to write a book? There's more people that have more experience than me. They should be writing a book, but they're not. They didn't. And I did write a book. And not that my experiences are that great, but I had a reasonable talent for writing, and I had something to share, and it was something that I felt the Lord put on my heart. And, I'm still selling it today. It took me a year, 2,000 hours to write that book. It was about 10 years ago. And I'm really happy that I did it. It was kind of a lifelong goal, something I always imagined, and I could have easily listened to naysayers. So the other thought, yeah, you may be persecuted. It's going to be hard. There's going to be people that tell you you shouldn't. You're not worthy. You don't have the validity. You're not enough. Somebody else should be doing it. You shouldn't be. Are you going to listen to them or not? Regret. Regret is one of my biggest fears. I don't want to live with regret. I want to give it all. I'd rather try and fail and then be able to look back and know that I failed. Like when I'm somewhere and we're sheep hunting, before I move out of an area, I'm going to look in every last nook and cranny, because I want no doubt in my mind, like, hey, man, maybe we should have checked there, or we could have checked there. I don't want to do that. I don't do that. I want to check everything so I know it's like, hey, there's nothing here. We've tried everything. It's time to move. And so, yeah, you can't care about other people's opinions. I know when I first started putting stuff up on YouTube and got death threats and stuff about hunting, I mean, it bothered me. It kind of made my heart race. Like I'd have to read it, and I'd read it over, and it's like, man, who, man, these people feel that strong. Who are they? And I'd maybe look them up, and I don't know, that lasted probably too long than I'd care to admit, but eventually, just like anything, you'll get over it, and you'll just recognize that, hey, other people's opinions don't matter. But I will say this, because I thought like all that stuff, peer pressure, those kind of things, that ended after high school. It doesn't. Adults are just like high school kids very often. There's a few people that figure it out and grow. We all grow to some degree, but it's not some radical transformation like I expected when you get into adulthood. People are still people. They make mistakes. We all do. But my last thought is Genesis 1:27, which says this, that man is created in God's image. So if man is created in God's image and we're all unique, what does that tell you? It tells me that inside of us is a tiny little mustard seed of God, of God's image. What makes us unique, I believe that is the image of God. And if you're listening to social media, if you're going to listen to the world is going to try to get you to conform, to strive to be like somebody else, or divide you against someone else, or to try to believe you're something else. That's probably the most popular now, or one of the becoming more popular. And I think the only thing that I'll say this, the best part of pursuing your dream is that will bring you one step closer. As you realize your dreams, that will bring you one step closer to discovering what that unique mustard seed of God's image is, what it looks like, and who you are. Because sometimes you're going to get to the end of your dreams, realize your dreams, and you're going to realize that, hey, it's a mirage. That's what I realized on many of my dreams, is that being an Alaskan hunting guide did not fulfill me. That wasn't the end all, right? It was great. I was glad I did it. Going hunting in the places that I went hunting, making films, being an outdoor writer, all these dreams that I had as a kid, every single one of them has come true for me. And at the end of that adventure, at the end of that rainbow, I believe that's what I found was God and what he was calling me to be and what he was calling me to do and who he was calling me to serve. And that's why I'm talking to you. Is God has blessed me immensely. People have come in my path that I couldn't have orchestrated it, I couldn't have fathomed it, I couldn't have written it, dreamed it any bigger or any better than this. And to think, it's very, very humbling to think that right out my window here, I stomped around this 440 acres that my grandpa owned. That was my mini Alaska, that was my world, and that's where it all started. I started by figuring out what a red-winged blackbird was and learning what his call sounds like and recognizing a raccoon track from a beaver track. That's where it all started. That's where this dream, that's where this light switch moment, that's where the spark was struck. And what I've come to realize that in the end, there's only one opinion that matters. And Jesus said that the whole Bible can be summed up into this: love God above all things and love your neighbor as yourself. The purpose of everything in nature is to give, through its life, to give something back to nature. And I believe that's what our purpose is in this world, is to give something back to others. So if you want to succeed, if you find something that you love and you can figure out a way that you can do it while giving life, giving something positive back to others, you're about 90% of the way there. And obviously you got to figure out a way to monetize that and to, make that work for you so that you can make it sustainable. But that's about as simple as it gets, and you've just got to kind of bring those components together. For me, as a guide, I had to be able to filming became part of it, and that's probably what really took it to the next level that I didn't expect. In the guiding world, one of the biggest drawbacks that I've seen from guys that had to quit guiding is they didn't have enough financial stability, because guiding is seasonal work. So if you want to get a unique job or career or a business, a small business, that's probably the other thing where I'd say I have a fair bit of knowledge, is running a small business is very hard. Starting it from scratch and doing something that hasn't been done before, it's pretty hard. Most things that I've done have been done before, but to combine them to make a livelihood out of them is pretty unique. So what I've found is that if you want to start something that's new, that doesn't have a category, that there isn't like a mold for it yet, and if that's the case, you're probably going to have to figure it out. You're not just going to go in and be a contractor and build a house. If you want to build a very unique type of house in a different area or something, for example, the market isn't tested yet. You don't know that you're going to have customers, right? But what I've found as a guide, doing something that's seasonal and doing a job that a lot of people would consider kind of a dream job, the hardest thing is making enough money the rest of the year and having something you could fall back on to generate income when you're not guiding. So for me, I learned a trade. I learned how to build things. I could always work with my hands. I was pretty self-sufficient, but I learned how to build houses, do carpentry, roofing, siding, framing, a little bit of everything. Anything that involved a nail and a hammer and a saw, I can pretty well do it. So that was a key for me, and I was hardworking, so I could always find work. So the fourth thing that I want to bring to you is just financial stability. Is don't get yourself into debt. Keep your liabilities to a minimum. You don't want to have regular payments due. That is like a kiss of death. Because if you want to do something for an extended period of time, you don't want to do something for the money right out of the gate. You want to learn it from the ground up. You want to look at it as like an education, just like you go and you paid for college. Or some people do anyway. So you got 4 years. Is if you could approach what you want to do And if you could give yourself 4 years with like a college kid's mentality that, hey, I'm going to spend 4 years, if I make money, great, but I'm going to learn everything about this industry, this job, whatever it is, I'm going to spend 4 years just learning, and whatever money I make is a bonus, you are setting yourself up for long-term success, big time. I tell my kids this all the time, is it's not the one-time purchase that's going to break you. It's the things you do habitually. Like, we don't go to, I mean, I've always been pretty cheap, just ask my wife, but I don't go to gas stations. I bring a water, I mean, I will once in a while when I have to, but if you go to a gas station every day and you buy a Monster and a pack of cigarettes or a thing of beef jerky and you get your breakfast there, it's easy to spend $10 a day. Or if you're buying cigarettes or alcohol, it's easier to spend $15, $20 a day. Okay, so now you times that times 7 days a week, 20 is 140, $40 a week. Now times 50, what do you got? $6,000 a year. That is gonna, that's a big purchase once every year. And that's one thing I've learned, these guys that come hunting, I was always the impression that everybody always says this, oh, you must have a lot of rich doctors and lawyers that come hunting with you. There's very few doctors and lawyers. A lot of it is just self-made men, guys that have started in a trade, they're in construction, or they had a business of some sort. You certainly get the doctors and lawyers, don't get me wrong, but they're just guys that just started from ground zero and just kept building, just kept improving, kept doing more. And they're guys that are fiscally responsible. They guard their money, they work hard, most all of them work very hard, and they want to be able to enjoy themselves for 2, 3, 4 weeks a year. Some of these guys will go on a hunt or two a year, but they work hard the rest of the year. And I think in part that's their motivation, so they can go and do that. Proverbs 22:7 says that the borrower is servant to the lender. And that is definitely a principle that has served me well. When I was young, I would be in Alaska guiding fishermen and hunters 6 to 7 months out of the year, and then I'd go to Idaho for about a month and a half every year. So I would come home for 4 months every winter. I lived with my parents, I think, until I was 25. During those 4 months in the winter, I would travel a lot and go to shows and stuff, so I was here and there and gone quite a bit, but I would help them on the farm, and then I would work a construction job. So I had zero bills, and so everything I was making, I was able to put a little bit of it in the bank. That served me very well. And the other thing that I've learned as I speak at schools, particularly, I speak at a lot of corporate events, Christian outreach events, a lot of schools, but I tell kids this a lot. As soon as money becomes your deciding factor on what you do, your dream just died. As soon as money becomes the deciding factor, the dream's dead. Because what's going to happen when you make money, if at that point you're making a decision based on money, it tells me that you either need the money or you want the money for some reason. You're going to go spend it. And then as soon as you have that money and you're going to go spend it, guess what? You probably have more bills, or your lifestyle is going to raise to such a level where after that, you're going to need more money. And now you're just in this downhill spiral to ever get back to that dream, to that pure motivation of like, hey, I want to live my life doing this. It's going to be really, really hard for you at that point to get back, because now you just made your life about money. And I think that's Matthew, I don't know what it is, but you can't serve God and mammon. But so one or the other. You're either going to have to serve money or chase money or chase your dream. It's pretty hard to have both. Very, very, very hard. You can maybe, if you start off chasing your dream, maybe at some point you could kind of focus on the money a little bit more. But I think once you really chase that dream and you really are receiving true fulfillment, you won't care about the money. And honestly, I think, not that I know that yet, but I've seen it in enough people's lives. When they really chase their fulfillment, they get to that level where the money just comes in organically, automatically. They sow enough because they're passionate about what they do and they're doing something that they love, that for them to sow, to give, to provide, to give a good service or create good content, that just becomes automatically. And over time, the law of reaping and sowing just has to come true, in that whatever you sow, you will reap. Eventually, you're adding enough value to people, the money will just come by default. So in our modern world, so often we're taught to focus on reaping. If the parable of reaping and sowing is true, if we just focus on sowing, you don't even have to worry about the reaping. It will just happen by default. So in the context of guiding, stay fiscally responsible, don't get in over your head, don't spend outside of your means, and do those things that you want, and get whatever opportunities you can. And over time, they will pay off. They just having that experience will pay off over time if you stick with it. So my next point is to sow seeds, which I just touched on that a little bit. But I've been doing public speaking for 10 years, and I remember I took everything that I could get. I started off as like civic organizations, Lions clubs, those sorts of things, classrooms, whatever I get. I mean, I wasn't paid for that stuff. Then I started doing sport shows so I could peddle some hunts, some videos, my book. And some of these sport shows I would go to, it'd be 5 days long, and then they'd have me speaking 2 or 3 times a day. So I'd do a 5-day show. I might speak 12 times. I mean, I kind of almost get lost in my head what I was talking about, but I did it by repetition. I didn't take classes. I did read a couple books later on, but I had no dream or vision of being a public speaker, but I truly love it. But what I learned by repetition is I learned what held people's attention, and when I would lose them, I did it so much. I would speak at nursing homes, assisted living, and I mean, it was like 20% of the people would fall asleep. People would be snoring as I was speaking, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'd be getting paid like $300, and but I wanted, it was something at that point I wanted to pursue. So anyways, after 10 years, the business was growing organically, and I was like, man, this has great potential for me in the wintertime. I love it. And it was the first year that I really devoted, my wife and I kind of worked together. We devoted time to actually market it a little bit. And it was the first winter that I had, I would say, a full schedule of speaking. I was speaking three weekends a month. Well, then COVID comes. COVID hits, all of my speaking gigs canceled within like a 2-week period. So now all of our winter income, we just finished building a house, our winter income potential just was seemingly squashed. And as a breadwinner of the family, I was petrified, man. It really struck me. It put fear in me and insecurity. And it was, I just cried out to God, like, what do you want me to do? And I remember him telling me, and when I had my born again experience in the Alaskan wilderness on August 17, 2011, and he told me, when I came to an undeniable faith in Jesus Christ, I heard a still small voice, and he told me to share this. That's all I heard. So in that moment of indecision, and I didn't know what to do, I went back to him telling me to share this. And so I grabbed a video camera, and I decided, hey, I'm going to film my Christian testimony, and I'm going to call it Trust the Guide. I just came to the title just came to me like that. I grabbed a video camera, and I filmed myself in front of my fireplace, or my campfire right out here. And I started it. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know what else to do. I just went back to what God told me to do. And what's crazy is that year, which looked the most bleak of any year financially, I mean, it looked like a train wreck, is that following year, our income was double what it was the year before. This isn't any prosperity gospel kind of thing, but all I can tell you, and I didn't make any money, or very, 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 very little money off of the Trust the Guide videos, but what it did is it gave me exposure to people that needed speakers. So it didn't come, most of it didn't come that year. Other people contacted me about hunting, and so I was able to, book some hunters from that. But then the real benefit came the following year or the year after that, because they saw those videos that I did when I didn't have anything else to do. That wasn't bringing me very, very little money at the time, but in the long run, it really paid off. And so that served me. In the same token, when I was a young packer looking to get into the hunting industry, and I wrote, called, emailed every outfitter I could find, and a lot of them sent me their promotional literature that they would send hunters. This was still back in the mail days, this is 26 years ago. So they'd send me brochures, and this one guy sent me a video. His name was Dennis Harms. He had a video, a promotional video that he had filmed. And I mean, that was awesome. You see these big moose and these salmon and these sheep and these bears. I was like, this guy's at the top of the heap. And he was the guy that I called, and I just said, I'll do whatever. You don't even have to pay me. Just give me a chance, because I didn't really even know, but I wanted to experience what this guy was doing, because he seemed like he was the best. And that served me very well. Again, didn't really realize it, more by luck. He hired me, he did pay me. But if you learn from a guy that's at the top, it's common sense that he probably knows the most, or in all likelihood, by law of averages, he's going to probably be able to give you the best education or set you up for success better than a half-rate guy that's been doing it for a couple of years. Dennis had 20-some years of experience at that time, and that was the foundation. That was my college education, if you will, that really got me started. And so my suggestion is to spend an extra year, if you have to, packing. We'll just use this for an example. In the hunting world, you start off for a year or two as a packer, and then you get hired as a guide. Well, inferior outfitters may hire you as a guide really quick, right? They'll hire you as a guide that other top-notch outfitters, you're still going to be packing for them. My suggestion, human nature, is we want to get that guide license as soon as we possibly can to get all the glory and the money and the women that comes with guiding, right? I can tell you it doesn't. But what served me was that Dennis made everybody pack for a minimum of 2 years before you could get a guide's license. And that it gave me so much more confidence to know what I was doing once I did start guiding. And I learned, I would say in the long haul, it definitely paid off, but I'm so glad that I didn't have to stumble through so many hunts to teach myself as I was guiding, because that's an uphill battle. If you're doing something and you're not qualified for it, even a novice hunter is going to recognize it. So don't be short-sighted. Don't let your ego and your pride get ahead of you and try to do something that you're not prepared for, because there's no better way to crash and burn. And in the Alaskan wilderness, you could literally crash and burn or get somebody killed or hurt if you're not ready to make those decisions. So play it slow, get a solid education, and just let it happen organically. And then the opportunities, when you're ready, trust that guy that you're with, in this instance, that's got 25 years of experience. Trust his judgment as to whether or not you're ready. But in the meantime, sow seeds, keep working hard. The opportunity will come at the right time. So my 6th point is seek and you shall find. Whatever it is that, again, as long as you love to do it, devote as much time to it as you can. And even if you're doing something in a roundabout fashion, kind of like for me was hunting, I married hunting, storytelling, video production and storytelling all kind of go together. Video production, writing, and public speaking. Storytelling is that's the foundation of all 3 of those. And then hunting was my passion. And so I kind of married hunting and storytelling and communicating, I guess. And at the what I consider to be my secret sauce of all that is the human element. If I can find the human element in the story of my writing, my video, my presentation, it will be well received. I only found the human element not by writing, video, and speaking, but I found the human element in the 25 years and the 8 years of my life that I've been in the wilderness in a tent with one person at a time. I paid attention to the details. And again, it was just by default, it was just by accident. I just came to know people, understand people in a certain way that's unique. Okay, I don't know everything about everybody, but there's just some little facet that an opportunity that I had that very, very few people have. And so I have this insight that very few people have. And it came to really fascinate me, and I'm passionate about sharing it and understanding it. And that's kind of my secret sauce, I guess, is that human element. And so whatever you're pursuing is just find your unique take, that mustard seed that's inside of you, that unique perspective that you have that nobody else has, that unique life experience that you have that nobody else has. Find that, cultivate it, plant seeds, go after it, and don't stop. It's simple to say, kind of hard to do. Learn as you go. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. When you go to school, you get good grades by getting things right. As soon as you get out of school, you succeed by failing and then keep learning from those failures and not quitting. So it's almost like the opposite. And I was not that good at school, and I almost feel like I did okay in life, but school was not my thing at all. Not at all. And any teacher that ever taught Billy Molls will attest to that. And teaching Billy Molls was not their thing at all. But so I always say, whoever fails the most wins the most. It just happens by default, right? And mistakes are lessons. In school, again, I always felt bad, and we're all kind of, we don't want to raise our hand if we're unsure if we know the answer, right? Yeah, maybe if you know the answer, you're all about it. But in life, if you don't know, that's where the excitement is. That's where the adventure is figuring something out. And if you don't have that, if you never acquire that, I don't think anybody really enjoys that to start. But honestly, I think that almost gets comfortable. I get very bored and disinterested if there's something that I've mastered. As soon as I got something and I can figure it out about 80 to 90% of the way, I don't want to do it anymore. It's not fun. It's not challenging. It makes me, I don't feel alive. That's probably why I've done a fair number of things where I've never done anything to where I've gotten burned out on something. I never want to, it's like the old adage of rut, if you just sit there and you're in the mud and you just keep your tires spinning, you're just going to sink, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. But the other thought is there's wisdom and counsel, right? To get people's opinions, particularly if people have been there before. Okay, that's huge. I have counselors and or people that I ask advice for. I've been very blessed. Many of the people that I ask advice from are hunters, people that I've met. Again, a couple hundred men that are successful at a bare minimum in business, all of them in different walks of life. I have a Rolodex of these people that I can contact to get advice, right? But conversely, there's also times where you have to develop your own discernment. Just like you have instinct in hunting, over time of failing and trial and error, you learn how and why to do things. You maybe don't consciously know how or why, but you know that, hey, this is the thing not to do and this is the thing to do, because it's just been honed into you and it just becomes instinctual. Right? And so discernment in any realm of life comes about that way. You've got to practice it. It's like knowledge or wisdom is knowledge applied or having been tried. Knowledge is very easy to come by, very easy. It's all on your phone. Okay? But wisdom is a pretty rare thing. wisdom takes through real world application of knowledge. And so pay attention to what people tell you, but also if there's something in your heart or again, that unique perspective or life experience that you have, you also have to take that in count. And I'm going to give you this example. Pat Reeves, I love the guy. Of course, he has a hunting show called Driven TV with him and his wife, Pat and Nicole. I asked him about 15 years ago, just before I was starting my TV show, Modern Day Mountain Man. I only ran it for 2 years because he was right. I asked him for some advice, and he said, my advice is don't do it, man. It's pretty dog eat dog. It's hard to get into. And he said it tongue in cheek. He wasn't saying absolutely don't, but he's just like, yeah, it's pretty tough. And I kind of recognized what he was saying, and I know he was good-hearted in his advice, but I'm glad that I did it, because I would have never believed it, or I would have never understood it unless I walked through it. What I found that in television, hunting television anyway, is that it's all about sponsorship. It's all about, because you make your money from sponsors. And I recognize that I was not interested in being a spokesperson and marketing. That did not appeal to me. It burned me out, and I quit it. But the good news is that in that 2 years of doing that and losing a whole bunch of money, I produced a pretty good show. It was nominated for some awards on the networks, but I wasn't good at selling advertising. I wasn't good with communicating with marketing directors that work in a cubicle or an office. I could talk to people about hunting, but that was about it. But that made me know that, hey, that is a path that I don't want to go down. And then I just figured, you know what? I'm just going to put these films together the way I want them to be put together, and I'll let the cards fall where they may. I didn't need the money. That's where I had a huge advantage. I could just put something, it was glorified home video really at that point. Because I didn't need the money, that gave me the freedom to just not worry about trying to garner as many eyeballs as I possibly could. To me, I don't want to do that. I want to just produce something that I'm passionate about, the way that I think it should be, and whoever watches it. That served me. I'm not going to produce something just so more people will watch it. I might produce something that I feel will add value or benefit more people. Absolutely. I'll get fulfillment from that. That will drive me. Hey, if I can help more people by talking about this, that I'll look at. But I'm not going to make I'm not going to show my boobs on here just so more people will watch it. That's just not me. But the other thing that I learned was when I posted videos on YouTube, everybody said, it's like, oh no, your films are really long. They're 2 hours long. You can't post that on YouTube. People don't go to YouTube to watch 2-hour videos. They want them like 5 to 10 minutes, 20 minutes max. And so I had these 2-hour videos, and I went and I chopped them up into pieces, or I had my editor do it, because I don't know how to do that stuff. And we posted them, and it was like, okay, we'll see. And then one film, I just decided, you know what, I'm just going to put it wasn't easy to chop up, so I thought, I'm just going to put this 1.5-hour, 2-hour film on there. Well, what we've learned and what we just recently did is one of our 2-hour films that we chopped up into 10 segments, those videos were getting roughly 100,000 views a piece. And 2 years later, we took that whole film, that whole 2-hour and 20-minute film, and just posted that on YouTube. And in 2 weeks, we got 300,000 views on the exact same content in 3 weeks. Whereas in those little 20-minute clips, those as individuals, we would get an average of 100,000 views in 2 years. So what does that tell you? That tells me that it was the complete opposite of what everybody was telling me about YouTube. But the thing most of those guys they were posting on YouTube was whitetail footage. It was whitetail hunts, which are commonplace, easy to come by. People kind of understand what goes on in a whitetail hunt. Whereas I had Alaska hunting footage, which is obviously a little bit more unique, more rare. And so my point is there's a time when to take counsel. And then there's also a time to go against the grain, to do what hasn't been done. There's times where if you're producing oranges, you probably want to go to the guy that's been, running orchards for 40 years of his life. He's probably a guy to listen to. I probably wouldn't do too many things outside of what he's done, right? There's probably a time and a place. But if you have something that's unique, um, you're going to want to take advice that you get tongue in cheek and recognize that sometimes the greatest opportunities are going to be 180 degrees opposite of what everybody else is doing. And for me, the unique thing is I gave a perspective in my filming that is raw and off the cuff. So my videos, I film them as a guide. And so it's basically home video. I don't have microphones because I need to keep it very simple. But what happened was, I think, again, this was by accident, by dumb luck. What I feel is that so much of hunting television got so over dramatized and cinematic that people lost, something was lost in that real world, authentic, raw flavor that my videos provided, because I didn't have a cameraman. Number one, I couldn't afford them. Couldn't afford to pay them, and then to haul them in and out of all these locations, it was just too remote and too difficult. And people ask me all the time, "Oh, have you ever thought about bringing a cameraman up there with you?" And I'm like, I thought about it, but honestly, I think it would ruin it. Number one, I would act different in front of a cameraman. When I just have a video camera that I'm filming myself, I believe that I'm pretty much I'm myself. It's just easy for me. And at this point, it's kind of automatic, but it brings a unique perspective, a niche, a shtick, if you will, that it just really nobody else was doing. I mean, maybe a few people here and there. It's a little bit more common now, but that served me really, really well. And because that's almost like kind of transitioned me into the next level of my career in the outdoors. The seventh and final point is don't quit. Again, another thing that's simple to say, harder to do. I've heard this several times, that something to the effect of, your biggest breakthroughs are on the other side of your greatest adversities. And I would say that that's pretty much the case. Probably 6-7 years ago, I thought about quitting guiding, quitting all that I was doing in the outdoor industry, and going back to farming. Mom and dad were getting a little older. My kids were getting older. I was gone a lot. And it just didn't seem like the thing that I was doing was sustainable for a family. And so I wrestled with that. And the thought of my dad and I working together, I love my dad, but I just knew that probably wasn't going to go so well. And I just didn't have a passion for farming. I never have. But that's what forced me to be like, you know what? There's something to this public speaking thing. There is nobody in no hunting guide that I knew of, nobody in the hunting space that I knew of was into corporate speaking at all. But I kept thinking, it's like, man, hunting in Alaska, that's like the World Series of hunting. There's no reason. Yeah, I get it. Hunting's maybe not for everybody, but that said, when I go to corporate events, usually the most feedback that I get at corporate events or schools or even colleges is from people who don't hunt, because you give them a unique perspective that they don't hear, particularly from liberal media. You just share them the truth about nature and how it works, and you can open their eyes and you can change their minds, or at least give them a perspective that they've never heard and never considered before. And that's pretty gratifying. That's pretty powerful. I mean, that's really how you change the world. You don't really change the world by feeding people that already think the same way you do. You really change the world by letting people on the other side understand your perspective and showing them things that that they don't understand, or nobody's shared with them before. So to get back to my story, is I thought about quitting guiding to farm to get something a little bit more stable with my family, because I was gone so darn much. And then that prompted me to say, hey, is there a way that I can continue doing what I'm doing and make it work for our family? And what we came up with was public speaking. It's an opportunity. If we could make that work, that would be an opportunity for which I could do in the off season. I could do it until I'm very old. Obviously, guiding in Alaska is very physically demanding. So that had long range potential. And so we started putting effort into that, and that was scary. We kind of went all into it, and it started off, it took a year or two to get some traction, but eventually it took. And the only reason why I stepped out towards that to start cutting down on my guiding and being gone so much was out of necessity. And the old adage, necessity breeds invention. And that's exactly what we came up against. We're like, hey, financially, guiding just isn't enough. Pounding nails is too hard on my body. I work my body like a rented mule when I'm guiding, and then I do it in construction like my body needs a break. And this, I've had enough. Enough people were gracious enough to tell me, hey, you've got a knack for this, you should pursue this. And over those years of honing it and crafting it and making the most out of every opportunity, because I never advertised, but every speaking gig led to another one. There'd be somebody there that said, oh, you would be perfect for this. Or 2 years later, hey, I heard you speak at this. We've got this going on. Would you like to speak here? And it was just slowly. I mean, it took 10 years. And Modern Day Mountain Man, from a business standpoint, Modern Day Mountain Man took 10 years before I made a nickel. 10 years. I mean, any business book will tell you to probably quit at 2 years, and most certainly by 5 years, if you're not profitable, you should quit. But I loved it. It was I was shingling roofs to produce videos. Nobody's there for that. Nobody else was there other than my family. And that's the stuff that you don't hear about nearly enough, is once people arrive and other people, I'm not saying that I've arrived, but when you see other people's success, it's so easy to say, boy, I'd like to have that, rather than say, man, I wonder what was involved in them doing that, achieving that, attaining that, what went into that. To me, that's where the story is. Everybody wants to see the mountaintop moments, but life is lived in the valleys, not in the mountaintops. You learn in the valleys. And I'm going to leave you with this one thought, is that whatever adversity you're going through, is that your promised land, the only way to get to a mountaintop is to go through the valley first. You got to go through a valley, and life is just a series of valleys and mountaintops. Right? And if you stop short in whatever valley you're in, if you quit and you don't make it to that next mountaintop, you'll never know if that next valley, that's where that ram was, or that bear, or that moose, or that valley might have been your promised land. That valley might have been over top of that next mountain, in that next valley, might be that one, that catalyst that opened the door for you. If you have too many distractions or too many commitments going on that are pulling you away from that, you'll never know. That they pull you away from that next mountain, you'll never know if that next valley was your promised land. So keep at it. And if I can leave you with one thing, it is this. I've been all around the world. Every dream that I've ever imagined came true. Hunted all over the place, done everything I've wanted to do. And I've found that there is no greater adventure in this world than trusting Jesus Christ as your guide. Because He is going to lead you to places, and He is going to, through the trials and the tribulations, through the valleys, you're going to come to know Him more. You're going to come to know and rely and love yourself less. And at times that's really, really hard. But when you see the benefits of dying to yourself, because as you die to yourself, you'll be able to give more life to others. That's where the secret to life is. That's my personal take, and that's what Christianity, that's what following Christ is all about, is dying to yourself. The Bible says we're to carry our cross daily, which means that we are to suffer for others. And then that's hard. That's always hard in the present. But over time, you see the fruit and the results of that. There is nothing better in this world than to give to others. There just isn't on the horizontal plane. It just doesn't get any better than that. So as long as you're serving others, the fulfillment will come. So who knows? I would love to get your feedback, comments, questions, and maybe any questions, and maybe that we'd do a second part to this someday. This is definitely not exhaustive, but this is just a general idea of not only how to become a hunting guide, but it's just really to do anything. You can look up the requirements. Anybody can tell you the requirements to be a guide in Alaska or this state, or do this or that. But those are just the general principles of really doing anything that I've found that have served me and many that I know. And I hope it helps you.